I think we're broadcasting right now. We're live.
Excellent.
Here, do you want to man this and I'll...
Yeah, hold on. Greetings, everyone. Sorry about the delay this morning. This is one of the fun things about using beta technologies. We get the challenge of, no matter how many times you practice, being reliant on those beta technologies, and we just couldn't get it to want to broadcast until now this morning. So, I'm glad that we all made it here, and I'm thankful that you all hung in there. I know somebody is logged in at 2 a.m. in Australia, I think. Thank you. I'm impressed that you got up at 2 a.m. to watch this. A few roadmap or sort of rules for the road here for this session. We don't have anything specifically planned other than answering your questions. So your questions came from the discussion forum prompt that I set up based on the preparation for this session. So we'll answer those questions, 13 of them. I have with me 2 experts who will be also helping to answer these questions and even help ask these questions. You can ask questions as well if you've logged into YouTube by posting comments while you're watching this. So you'll be able to see a leave a comment icon right next to the broadcast in YouTube. If you're logged into your Google account, go ahead and leave comments there. If anything is seemingly going wrong or you need you have questions that you'd like us to answer. And then we're also monitoring our Twitter feed.
You're logged in as Melissa here, which you can comment here, and then
Yep.
This is our Twitter feed.
Yep. If you want to manage the Twitter feed, go for it. And you can manage this as me, I don't care.
Here, you can take this chair.
Yeah, and I'll scooch. Here, we'll scooch around here. Oh, it's back. Looks like we're back. Okay, so it looks like we might be back. You probably just had a pause there for a second. One of the challenges with this is that we are going to possibly have interruptions in the actual broadcasting. Fun things about teaching emerging trends and technologies is that we get to experience this firsthand, and we get to figure out how we can possibly manage this. So, I wanted to introduce the folks who will also be helping me do this today. Sitting next to me is Victoria O'Neill.
Hi, everyone.
You guys know Victoria as the course manager for this course. She's also a long-time teacher, and so she brings her own experiences, particularly in language instruction, to the table. And then I'm going to have Jesse Keeler poke his head in, if he will, for us. He's manning another computer. Oh, he's going to... Here, we'll turn him a little bit so you can see Jesse.
Oh, sorry. Focus. Hey, everybody.
Yep. So there's Jesse. Jesse's also helping us with this live session. He's helping man the Twitter feed with questions, and he will also be helping to make sure that our broadcast stays broadcasting. And I know we're not focused at the moment. I'm sorry about that. I think this is part of our feeding issue this morning over Google and YouTube. So bear with us. We may have some hiccups here too and pausing for technologies, but all of that is with the actual broadcasting of this session. We have all of the other possible parts of this technology set up in the best way we could. So with that, I think I might be frozen again for a second, but no comments. Let me just make sure that I'm viewing comments. Ah, yes. So, a couple of comments already. We're losing it. And, oops, let me go back here. So a couple comments already in our YouTube comment area. Yes, you're having trouble keeping connected to us, and you may not see our face or it may get interrupted. As I mentioned, I apologize for that. That's up to Google and YouTube and the internet worlds, but we've done everything we can on our end to try to make this as seamless as possible. We're trying. And I want to say also, thank you very much to everyone. We've been experimenting with a number of different technologies, a live Twitter chat. We've been playing around with different functionality in Coursera, and certainly things aren't going to work, but you all have been very patient in our exploration and in our trying out new things, so I appreciate that patience. Okay, so let's get going with some of the questions. So Victoria is going to ask me some questions that you guys presented in the Google discussions, and then, in the Coursera discussions, and then we'll also try to chime in with some from Twitter as well. So Victoria, take a question.
We have lots of questions actually, and the first one isn't from a particular student. We've just noticed there's a lot of questions around the peer assessment and exactly. A lot of people want to know what you're looking for, and there's questions of, can I use more than one technology, and can I do maybe college courses, based on a college class. So just people want more clarification, I think, on the assessment.
Great, yeah, I'd be happy to provide some clarification. So the idea of the assessment or the assignment is for you all to take some of the ideas that you're exploring in this course and apply them to a real life lesson or class or even part of a curriculum that you're designing. So the thinking here is all and any options are available. Meaning if you want to apply it to a higher education setting, that's fine. I had one student email me and ask me she wanted to create something specifically for one disabled student, and that's fine. If you want to use more than one technology, that's fine. If you want to use a theme that we've talked about, but not necessarily a technology, that's fine. The one thing, though, that I ask you to do is explain why you're choosing to do what you're doing in the first part of the assignment. Because that's where assignments, and then next week is when you'll have an opportunity to start reviewing each other's assignments.
Correct.
Yep. Great.
All right. So the next question has to do with Coursera numbers. How many students, the growth of maybe the virtual teacher courses, the numbers of virtual teachers, and that was a question by Glenn Stiven,
great. By the way, we will definitely butcher some names of students. We apologize for that. We'll try our best to get your names correctly. Yep, but we did want to make sure that we acknowledge the students that did ask these questions. So if you're listening, you know we're answering your question. So great question about Coursera. I have partnered, and you'll see this in our upcoming lecture on MOOCs. I've partnered with Coursera this is now the 14th MOOC that we've worked on here at UC Irvine and that I've personally helped develop. And in these MOOCs, we've watched Coursera grow tremendously over the last year. I believe it's over 5 million students taking over 500 courses right now in Coursera. And in our virtual teacher courses, now for those of you unfamiliar with this, we're offering 6 of them, and we're offering them over a span of a year. It's based on some curriculum that we developed here at UC Irvine, and in those courses we're seeing anywhere from 15 to 20,000 students per course. In our course here, we have over 17,000 students from 90 different countries. So we have people all over the world participating in this course, in case you were curious. I think I promised to tell you guys some of those statistics. So we're seeing Coursera get bigger and bigger and bigger. I will also talk about some of the other players in my MOOC lecture, so you'll learn a little bit more about the other providers out there, like the Canvas Network, like edX, and even like Udacity. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. They also have hundreds of thousands of students participating in those courses. I think a couple of you have also commented that we're not in very good focus. We're struggling a little bit with that broadcast, so I apologize for the fact that Victoria and I are fuzzy. Jesse's going to be moving around the camera while Victoria and I are answering your questions so that we can see if we can somehow make this a little more in focus.
So Melissa, you brought up just all the number of MOOCs that we are seeing now. And one student, Todd Anderson, he asked, how do you plan as a teacher for rapidly changing technology?
That's a really good question. I think that's come up, Todd brings it up in the discussions, and that's come up in a lot of different conversations that we've had. I've seen this in our Twitter feed. Ooh, you're going to see now we're going to be a little bit more clear. Anyway, so this has been coming up quite a bit, and I think it's a good question to address. How do you keep current? How do you know when to jump on something and when not to? And then ultimately, how do you make sure your community is supporting you doing some of these very current or emerging kinds of activities with technologies? So to answer the first one, how do you stay current? That was the reason why I really wanted everyone to create a community out of this class, because you stay current by being in communities of other teachers trying to do similar things that you are. That is the best way, because inevitably it's a way to disperse all of the different pilots out there, if you want to think about that. Everybody's trying something new, and it's great to learn from one another and be in those active communities to do that. So things like keeping up Facebook, and I know a number of you are starting some communities and even some private groups in Facebook. Great. Do that and keep in touch with one another. Keeping in touch in Twitter, finding new, I'll keep up with tagging hashtag emerging trends MOOCs after this course, but if you guys have other things or other ways that you want to start forming even feeds or searches in Twitter, you can do that. That Google community that we created, nothing will get shut down after this course. It will all be available for all of us to continue to participate in, but you might want to start creating your own with some of you that have gotten together and really bonded in this course around similar issues. So that's how to keep current. I also think keeping in touch with certain publications and keeping in touch with some certain conferences and industry organizations. Now, I know these in the United States. They include things like ISTE. They include things like reading posts and other information from Edutopia. There's other good organizations that are continuing to keep up with technology in K-12 education, and so just making sure you know which ones are those appropriate to your country and how you want to keep current with that. When you think about how to digest or how to use different things, I think there's a tolerance level. There's going to be some classes where you have to teach very specific content and you only have a low threshold for actually being able to pilot and experiment new things. You don't have a whole lot of time because you have so much content you have to teach. Those are the places where you just pick things selectively and plan a little more in advance, and you also probably are a little bit more conservative in some of your choices because you're so tightly bound. I think about some of our teachers that have very strict regulations in the U.S., especially around Common Core, and they have to teach very specific things in very specific ways. Well, we have to do it. It's part of how it works in the United States. And so you might have a little less flexibility in piloting, but plan out your year, pick one or two things that you feel comfortable doing and do that. For those of you that get to teach electives, play, but tell students you're playing up front. So I was really clear with you all here today. This is the first time I've ever done this kind of live broadcast to so many people. Well, I wanted to make sure you knew that so that when we get in and we play, there's some understanding that things aren't going to work perfectly. And maybe it fails, but that's okay if it fails, because then make sure once you've told students that you're experimenting and then you do the experiment, you save time for reflection after. You ask students, how did the learning go? How was that experience? Do you feel like it helped or it hindered? Get feedback. Make it about the learning or metacognitive activity as well as the action itself. And like I said, if you get to teach electives or you have more freedom in how you teach your curriculum, play, and have fun with it. Students will appreciate the fact that you're playing and you're trying new things.
That's a great answer.
Hold on, I'm going to interrupt you. Jesse, are there any questions from Twitter that we should be addressing?
Yeah, there's some questions about how the live feed works.
How does the live feed work? Actually, I might have Jesse help me answer that because he was a little bit of my tech guru behind the scenes. So let me have Jesse start that. What I will say is we are doing this through a beta tool. This is beta technology, and Coursera is actually looking to incorporate this. Once Google goes fully live with this, and it's not just a beta tool, they're going to try to embed this in the MOOCs, which could be really exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Can you explain beta?
Yeah, we should explain beta. That means it's not actually out there. Well, in Google's case, they beta things by giving it out to anybody that wants to use it. But in a lot of technology's case, people will beta test products as a way to keep it in a pilot setting, or a subset of more advanced users get to play with it because all the bugs aren't worked out, as you can see here. So I'm going to rotate a little bit towards Jesse and have him talk a little bit about how this live feed works.
Well, hey everybody. The live feed is coming through YouTube, so we have a YouTube channel. And you've probably heard of Google Hangouts. So think of Google Hangouts and YouTube as being together. Because Google bought YouTube, so they're really part of the same family. And there's a variety of different flavors of live broadcasting that Google is offering. And with our live feed, it's a little bit different than just a standard Hangout, because with a standard Google Hangout, you're limited to a certain number of viewers coming in to participate in the Hangout. So we're actually using another technology, the live feeds. The live feeds are something that you have to get approved for or authorized through Google, and that's relatively easy through your site or through your YouTube channel. And then we had to install some other software. Right now we're using Wirecast, and as Melissa mentioned, the Wirecast is in beta, so we're having a few issues, a few glitches here and there. But they also have the broadcasting software comes with a couple different flavors. And so right now we're broadcasting through an application called Wirecast, and Wirecast connects to our YouTube channel, and that's how you're seeing us.
Yep.
And that's a lot of information. So
yeah. Thank you, Jesse. A couple of comments I'll make in that you can set up events, as you saw, ahead of time, which was really nice. We were a little worried that was what was breaking the connection earlier, but we got it to work. And you are able to record these sessions. So we will be recording this, and it's going to be posted in the YouTube channel for you all to then view, or for those of us that couldn't attend this session to view after the fact. We practiced a number of times. I encourage you, if you want to use this technology, to practice as well, and practice with your internet provider, because we discovered we had some issues when we were actually trying to use a landline here at the university because of firewalls and other things. So make sure you practice not only using the technologies, but on the particular internet service that you're going to use when it comes time to actually run the live broadcast.
And that's true of if you're using that's true if in YouTube, there's also a feature where you can record your webcam to just create some quick videos that way. And that's true with your webcam as well. So there might be some firewalls that your institution has set up that won't actually let you connect with YouTube and do that broadcast. So do some experimenting with it.
Yep. Yeah. I highly encourage experimenting, particularly in school districts. If you are in a physical district and teaching virtual classes, though, from a physical district, lots of schools put lots of firewalls up. And so you can have challenges there. Victoria, other questions from the forums?
Well, there's a few other ones, but I wanted to kind of briefly go back to Todd Anderson, and I thought you gave a great answer. But as I read it, I think as myself and maybe as some other teachers out there, there's like a fear that, there's not a lot of time we have, and there's just so much in the curriculum that it's a real investment of time and resources to put to a new technology. But I think by choosing one strategically and just maybe playing with it and seeing how you can use it, even if you use it for a few years or a few times, there's a lot to be learned and gained by that. Just working and playing it and seeing what you can get from it.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. And you don't have to use the cutting edge things to be successful. Very simple uses of technology that perhaps have been around forever, but they're different or innovative or engaging for students will be successful. So don't feel like you have to jump all in and suddenly make QR codes for, scavenger hunts and spend all night, every night of the week building these activities. You can do some simple things pretty quickly without having to worry about that time issue. Because yes, teachers we all work many more hours than probably a lot of people realize.
You got a question about why we chose to use this technology rather than Google Air.
Good question. Jesse, would you like, so we got a question about why using this versus Google Air. So Jesse might want to help us answer that.
Okay, so in YouTube, there's 3 levels of privacy settings. And you can keep something completely private just to a select group of individuals that you've emailed the link to. You can create something that's unlisted, which means that anyone who gets the link can view it. And you can create something that's entirely public that everyone in the YouTube world can see. What we wanted to do for this course was create a slightly more private event that's a little more exclusive to the class and to this course. So we wanted to create something, we created an unlisted event. So anyone who gets the link can view it, but this will kind of exclude some of the larger public.
Yeah. And I wanted to make that, I actually made that decision because we are actually referencing comments that you all have made, or discussion questions that you've posted by your name, and I wouldn't have felt comfortable referencing you by name if this was an entirely public broadcast. I wanted to respect you because you're students in this class. That doesn't mean that you're necessarily volunteering to be out there for the whole world to see what you may be asking or the questions that you may have. So that was part of the reason why I wanted to address your specific questions and acknowledge some of the great participation of students in this class, but without having to invade your own privacy.
Okay, next question.
Yeah.
This one is by Joy Leaves. Sorry about your name. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing. Leavesley. Joy Leavesley. And it's a two-part question. First, though the often quoted view is that children today are very visual, they also seem to enjoy practical hands-on, and I'm sure, despite technology, still learn best through all sensory modalities. How can technology be used to engage all of these?
Yeah. That's a really great question, because a lot of times when we think of technology, we think of it as this visual, right? It's your interaction with the computer, and that we're missing that physical, that tactile smell. There's a lot of other aspects that we're missing. So I think one important thing to think about technology is not to think about it as the entire solution for a lesson. You're not saying, I am going to do a lesson with Twitter. I am going to do a lesson, and one of the technologies or one of the enablers for that lesson will be Twitter. And now that's different, because that means you may have other enablers. You may send things out. If you're fully virtual, I did an activity with some students where, and you guys probably have done this in your class, the classic owl pellet dissection, where you dissect an owl pellet so that you can learn what that owl actually ate, and some other activities. So those are something very easy and simple. I mailed those out to students. Actually, they were all over the world. We could do it fairly cheap. I did it ahead of time. And then I incorporated some of our virtual synchronous activities using technologies with that particular lesson. So I think making sure that you know that the technology isn't the only part of the lesson. And I think somebody else commented in the discussions a couple of times, Joy, it might have been you, that it's important not to let the technology be the driver of your lesson. You're not using technology for technology's sake. You're creating a lesson, and maybe you use 5 different technologies. Maybe you use just one. Maybe it's physical and virtual, but making sure that the lesson drives it and that you incorporate and think about all of those other sensories, which I think is so important in how you develop the lesson. So it can't just be. Then that's one of the things that I don't like about MOOCs, is that, I like them because we can create these great learning communities and talk with one another. But at the same time, it's really hard to have a variety of different interaction points and to bring in a variety of different sensories, like you said, into the experience. It's just very virtual, very visual.
Yeah, I think I completely agree that it's not about using technology; it's about using it strategically to reach your outcomes. So, okay, next question. I'm gonna now turn to LMSs, and Amelia Marina Alexa asks, Moodle, Edmodo, and other learning environments. How do we choose and use them?
So one of the things that I didn't get into in this class, because I know some of you took the first one that UCI offered, and in that class they talked about learning management systems. So learning management systems, for those of you not familiar, are sort of the I'm going to call them administrative platform through which you offer virtual classes. And that's where you can connect all sorts of other technologies and tools and resources. So you could consider Coursera a learning platform. It's a learning management system. You go in there, there's, in and of itself, it's a MOOC learning management system, but it could be considered one, because in there it's where you get your resources, you connect with me, you collaborate with one another, you can, do assessments. It's this platform that you can do that in. Now, there are a variety of free ones out there. Moodle is one of them that's free. Although I will say free as in a free puppy, not free as in a free lunch, because there are some requirements in order to run a free system like Moodle, one of which is you need to host it somewhere. It needs to sit on a server somewhere. But there are tools like Moodle. There are now tools like Edmodo. Edmodo is fabulous for running some very simple courses for free in the application. Some of the LMS providers, learning management system providers, like Blackboard, like Canvas, have free sites where a teacher can go and host. They can put their own course, one course up for free. It's hosted by them. You can build that course out. You can enroll your students in that course. So there's lots of places like those now emerging that you can actually go try out a free learning management system. Now, if you're looking to make more of a move for your district or school, or even if you're in higher education for your institution, that's where you're looking for a platform that does more than just put a course up. That's where you want to integrate it with all of the other like registration systems and other things on campus. You want to bring other technologies in. You want to make some choices about how that's being used. And that's where you now need to do more of a formal evaluation of tools. And there's a whole host of those out there too.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yes. Jesse's got a question.
I want to. I'm aware that in the Twitter feed, I'm seeing there's a couple. The YouTube comments need to be approved.
And
that was. I think that's an issue on our end, Melissa.
Yep, I'm approving them.
Trying to see where you're seeing the feed at.
Here we go. I thank you for bringing that up, Jesse, and thank you for all doing that. So that was a goof on our end. That was one of those things that we forgot to make set so that we don't have to actually approve comments. Because I do have comments set to be approved in our YouTube channel. I'm careful because it's not that I don't think... It's not that I don't want you posting comments and just freely, but I worry when things are totally public, like on our YouTube channel, you never know what crazy things that some people feel like posting, and I would never have wanted to offend anybody else in this class because we opened it up completely to the public. So I'm working on approving them all right now.
And I can't.
And they're approving.
I can't see the feed, the comments feed. I can approve them. I just can't.
Can we see them?
You can approve them, but you can't see them.
I can't see the. I can't see where they're at with them.
Oh, it's not approving. They're not approving. We'll work on trying to get those approved. I apologize for that. So, Victoria, another question.
Yes. Let's see. I want to ask this question, which I think is so important because I myself am from a country who is, in a way, less developed or developing. So
share where you're from.
Oh, I was born in Uruguay, and I grew up there until the age of almost 10 when I came here.
Great.
So, and actually, I was looking at as a side note, a laptop for every child that Uruguay has instituted. But the question is, how can trends and technologies in virtual K-12 education be made to emerge in poor and or developing countries where there are no or scarce resources such as funds, internet connection, teacher training, infrastructure, but inhabited by young citizens who depend on adults to develop them into future leaders who can help turn around their respective countries for the better? And that was posted by Naomi Villarreal.
Yep. So this has come up a number of times in our discussions as well, and some of the feedback that you've shared. I know a number of you are from either countries that don't have the same kind of access to technology that perhaps we have in the U.S., although there are places in the U.S. that don't have great access to technology as well. And I know there are challenges around that. Absolutely. I chose in our content of the course to stay away from that just a little bit, not because I don't acknowledge it or don't appreciate the challenges, but because that opens up a whole nother set of conversations. Some of that is around thinking about what kinds of access do students have that you can capitalize on. So I'll give you an example. There are some countries that are very mobile oriented. They may not have great internet, but they have great cellular networks and mobile networks because of the kinds of companies that have come into those countries to help develop. Sure. So in those cases, and some of those might just be, they may not be smartphones, they may be phones and some basic things. Well, there are still some things you can do with some simple mobile browsers, even if you can't get to apps, to try to incorporate and use technology. So that's one thing to do, is to think about what the technology is that the country has at hand, or the location has at hand, that you can start to capitalize on. Another thing is, look for companies that are really trying to partner and make an effort with the kinds of technology access they're bringing to various countries. So I will give Coursera a lot of credit. For example, one of the things that they are doing is they are creating, with partnerships in countries around the world, centers where if internet access isn't rampant in the community, you can come to a center where there is internet access and there is computer access, and all take your courses there. And they're these hubs, these international hubs of learning. And following up on those kinds of things, because you could possibly bring your students to those hubs depending on how that emerges. So looking for those partner companies. Once again, mobile technologies, a lot of mobile providers are looking to partner and bring technology. Some of the big technology players are look for grants, look for initiatives, look for ways to bring in some technology into your school or into your communities. There's lots of companies like Microsoft and Google and lots companies that are looking to support those kinds of activities. So I encourage you to kind of search around for grants, and if any of you have done that kind of work or know of that in your countries, please share them in the discussion forums so that other folks know where they could go get resources on how to possibly partner with those companies that might want to bring that to your area. All else fails, I will make one last comment. You can certainly teach students how to be active citizens in the virtual world with physical activities. So you could certainly teach students how to write emails without ever having to send an email. You could certainly teach students what's good literacy. How do you disseminate among resources to understand, or how do you decide among resources what's a good resource versus a bad resource, right? Think about all those important lessons in being a tech-savvy citizen that aren't about what buttons you push, but about what decisions you make, and translate those to the face-to-face activities that you can do, so that you're still building that citizenry, that digital citizenry, without having to be reliant on the button pushing.
And I have a story that piggybacks on that. I don't know if you know this. Not down the street, but literally maybe 10 miles away, there are high school students that are taking a course online through UC Irvine, and we were noticing that a lot of students weren't participating. So we could see that, 80% of the students weren't watching the lectures. And we were very concerned, like, nobody's doing the work, what's going on, they didn't do well on the exam. So we were all very worried. Turns out that because of their Wi-Fi, they were all sitting around one computer and listening to the lecture. So we just assumed that they weren't doing the work, but in fact, they were just being very savvy.
Absolutely.
Because they were just using the Wi-Fi effectively. So those kinds of things, I thought, what a creative thing to do. However, from the teacher's point of view, professor, she thought that they weren't doing the work.
They weren't actually doing the work.
They were.
And that's a good lesson to learn, because a lot of times, I've even mentioned this, watch your data, see how students are participating. We'll also really know how the community is using that technology. Be aware of that so that you know what your data is actually telling you. And in that case, absolutely.
We were convinced that they weren't doing their work.
Doing their work.
They're not watching it. Look, I can see it right there. The data tells me. Okay.
So we have about 15 more minutes. Jesse, do we have anything else from the Twitter feed? I know we might not have gotten those questions approved. I apologize for that. So any other questions in Twitter?
And I've redirected people who were making comments to Twitter. So
great.
There's been a little bit of traffic here.
Great.
Stephen Rafters asked, if the technology doesn't work for you in one class, do you use it again or ditch it?
That's a great question. I love that question. So it fails in one class. Do you try it again or ditch it? So I think what you should do is first ask yourself, did it fail because of the population that I tried it with? So was it that class, right? So if it's fifth graders and then you also teach sixth graders, could that class make a difference, the population? That's question number one. And if it could, try it again.
Mm-hmm.
Also ask yourself, did it fail because of how I structured it with the lesson?
Yeah.
If that's the case, try it again. Ask yourself the third question, did it fail because the technology made the activity slower?
Mm-hmm.
Because the students couldn't figure out the technology and they spent more time learning how to use it than actually than doing the lesson? Or even did the technology completely fail, like it almost did for us this morning, where it just didn't work at all? In those cases, I'm not sure I'd try it again right away. I think I would reflect on it, think about it, say, is it really important for me, and maybe search for something else that could do the job just as well. But if it's your population, or it's the way you constructed it in the lesson, give it a shot again, because it may not have been, it just maybe with some revisions and some very action-oriented learning in that case, you may be able to use it effectively. But if it fails, try something else. There's plenty of technologies out there. If Wirecast wouldn't have worked for us this morning, we would have tried something else. So.
Can you field a question about a course assignment?
Yes, I will absolutely field a question about a course assignment.
Tenzin Wang Di.
Okay.
And
Tenzin
asked if he teaches an adult group and he wanted to plan his assignment for his adult group rather than K-12, and if you're okay with that.
Yes. If you want to plan your assignment for an adult group, go for it. Love it. Just make sure in the very first question that you answer, you set that context so that your reviewers can review knowing that this is for an adult audience. So just give them plenty of information for that. But you absolutely can. I know there's a number of you in this course that are also higher ed instructors. And so please, do what's relevant to you. That's what I care about. That's what your colleagues care about. So do what's relevant to you and something that you could get good feedback on. What I wish in future worlds is that Coursera will make it a way that we can allow students to group themselves in around interests so that you could actually get other adult teachers evaluating your work. But the technology quite hasn't.
They're working on
that, but it's not evolved quite there yet. But boy, wouldn't that be great? So yes, go for it.
So we've talked a little bit about older students and adult students, and then there's a question about younger students and maybe who can't read or write.
Yeah.
And that was a question actually by Heather Young. So how do you use technology for the younger students?
Yep. So in fairness, and I've said this in the discussion forums, one of the things that I would do differently about this course. And I've been trying to be very open about my learning in this course. This is the first time I've taught this particular course in a MOOC setting. And quite frankly, I'm learning. And I figure you can learn from my own personal reflection of how I'm learning in this course. There has been an absence of really technologies for really young children. And you're absolutely right. I went into this course assuming it was a totally virtual setting, and so that you would probably be working with older students, but what I'm, 6th grade and up kind of thing. But so when we think about the preschool ages where kids can't read and write, or we think about really young children when they can, but it's very basic, there's a lot of really good games and mobile applications out there. And Jesse's going to share in just a second too some of those ideas, but there's some really, really great games and mobile apps. And I'm going to share with you some resources before this course is over of some sites where you can go access those. It is great. I watch my niece who is 2 years old. She already knows how to scroll on iPad devices. She can get into Netflix and find the cartoons that she likes, and she does not know how to read.
My 5-year-old can do that.
Yep, and Victoria's 5-year-old can do it. So there's some really cool apps and games out there, and I'm going to pass it to Jesse because he's, I think, maybe even addressing this in some of the additional resources that are coming up in the course.
Before entering university and working as an instructional designer, I worked in a K-12 setting, in a variety of different K-12 settings. And I actually worked with the 4 to 6-year-olds. So I worked with the little guys, and I developed a online computer-based program for teaching them about computers and using some different applications. So there's, as Melissa mentioned, there's some great resources out there, and because the technology is icon-driven, the kids, even though they can't read, they can get in and they can make things happen. One of the great tools, an inexpensive tool, application is KidPix, and it's a design tool. They can be creative in there, but they can also start to build storyboards. There's some templates in there so they can start to work with the alphabet and develop some of those early learning skills. So there are some good resources, and whether you just have a computer-based classroom or you have access to iPads, there's a lot of different things that you can do with the little guys.
I mean, for my daughter, I have a math app, I have a Spanish app, and I have a reading app, and she can find them and she can play them, and she'll even say, "Mom, you have to buy the upgrade because I can't get to that level." I'm like, "Sorry."
Yep.
And there's a lot out there.
One of the things that's coming on Wednesday, because we're going to be focusing on open resources, it's kind of a wrap up to the things that we've done. Jessie, Victoria, another expert, Chandler, and Sarah are all my guest speakers, and they're all going to be presenting resources in various disciplines. And I've seen a couple of their lectures, and I know a number of them have included some resources for very young children. So keep your eye out for that too. There'll be some resources there. Another question from Twitter?
I want to address Claire, because Claire's been really active in the Twitter feed.
Great.
She's in Baton Rouge. And
Hi, Claire.
Hi, Claire in Baton Rouge.
Claire asked about Moodle. They use Moodle in their classroom, and she wondered if there were any other tools or anybody else's, what other options there might be.
Instead of Moodle in the classroom. Gotcha. So instead of Moodle for your classes as a learning management system, Claire, you might want to check out Edmodo. It's a little more limited in some of its tools, but there's parts of it that are really kid-friendly. I really like about it. And so I would encourage you to go check out that. Depending on what grades you guys are teaching, I would also consider looking at Blackboard course sites and Canvas. I don't know what it's exactly called, but they have a free site as well. Those are alternative learning management systems that you can go pilot a course on there and try it out. So what I would encourage you to do is put up a course on Edmodo, put up one on Blackboard, put one on a Canvas, and then try them out and see if they're doing things that you can't do in Moodle that you like better. And then you can pursue looking at bringing that into your school, as a more pervasive technology. But those are a couple of them that definitely check out. Desire to Learn is also a company that does it. Desire to Learn, I'm not sure how K-12 focused they are. I know they've been more focused on higher ed, but I do know there are K-12 districts that use it. Actually, I think in Georgia in particular that uses it. But that's another one that you can go out and check out. Another Twitter question?
Another Twitter question, yes.
And then we'll be wrapping up in just a few minutes. I'll have one more Twitter question, and I'll have Victoria ask me one more question out of our discussion forums. And then, is there anything else on Twitter?
Liliana asked, is it confusing for students if each teacher chooses their best option for technology? Should we prioritize their comfort?
That's a great question. So is it confusing if students go from one class to another and the teachers are using all sorts of different technologies? So I have two answers to this. On one side, I think no, because students are used to using all sorts of different technologies in their social lives or in their personal lives. Even young kids, they're using all sorts of different technologies. I'm sure Victoria's daughter is using all sorts of things. So on one hand, I say no. Don't worry about their comfort, because they will probably need to be exposed to these different technologies or have been already exposed to them. On the other hand, the one thing that can get confusing for students is when teachers use the technologies in different teaching ways. So they go into one class and they're posting perhaps an asynchronous discussion forum, like in Moodle that Claire's using. So let's say they're doing that in one class. Well, maybe the teacher gives them explicit instructions that you're supposed to write only 2 or 3 sentences, clear sentences, grammatically correct, and I will take points off if you don't do that. And then they go into the next class, and they're doing discussions in Moodle, and the teacher says, it doesn't matter if you're grammatically correct. It doesn't matter how long you write. I want you to have references, and it's about your ideas. That's where it can be confusing for students, because you're trying to guide them in how best to use the technology. And when it's not consistent across classes, that can be struggling. They can get frustrated or forget and then not understand why they're not doing as well. So that's where I encourage you, if you have a group of you at your schools that are all piloting different technologies, I encourage you to get together if you can, during a prep period or a break or whatever, and talk about how you might be using it and what what are some of the standards or best approaches to how you're going to have students participate in using those technologies. Just because it's more consistent in how you're using it, and then students aren't confused on what's good or bad use of that technology. They're not getting mixed messages. So that's where I say be careful then, because the more technologies and the more people using it, the more likely you can send those mixed messages. So one more from the discussions.
One more. Here's a good one. This one was submitted by Rishi Kumar Ramchurn. And the question is, a teacher's engagement beyond normal school hours is praiseworthy, but is it normal, and isn't it encroaching on teachers' private life? How do teachers manage the shift in the role that technology is playing?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I slightly addressed it in our first lectures in week 1. Okay, so technologies suddenly bring the expectation that you're connected all the time. Right? Students are used to instant gratification and feedback from their social technologies or their games that they play or the tools that they use to shop or whatever it might be. So the pressure of technologies and bringing technologies into your classrooms is on two sides. One, it's to learn the technology and to create lessons, and a lot of times it takes a lot more time to build lessons with technology, especially if they're the first one doing it. And then the second part is students expect you suddenly to answer at night. Yeah. So a couple of things that I encourage you to do. One, I've already said, keep with this community and share lesson plans and share lesson plans in your schools so that you can capitalize on somebody else's development. It's finding ways to use what other people are already doing without having to reinvent the wheel over and over again. So get in groups, do those kinds of things, share your lesson plans. The next thing is be super explicit with students at the very beginning how you will participate in the use of these technologies, particularly if it's social technologies, and limit when you do it. Tell students when you're going to do it. Be active when you say you're going to be active, and don't be active when you're not. And train students to use the technologies in the way you want them to. So if they email you and you want them to be asking all questions in a Google community, post that question in the Google community and do not answer an email or do not answer it in your LMS system. The more explicit you are, the more you train your students to use the technologies in the way you want, and the better you set the expectations. Students are only ever disappointed because they have different expectations. They aren't disappointed that you're only going to check in 3 times a week. That's okay. It's that they thought you were going to check in all the time. So just be very explicit, set your boundaries, stick to your boundaries, and I hope that if any of you are administrators in your schools and districts, or if you have the influence or the control over ensuring that teachers are recognized for the work that they're doing in technology, please do it. Right. I work really hard in the higher education institutions that I work with to make sure that we can bring in technology use in the tenure and promotion process. That's important. We need to acknowledge success, and we need to acknowledge success in technologies. So if you have the power, it's in your control, please also think about finding ways to help acknowledge the teachers at your schools also doing this, because it does take more time. It really does. There's no way around that. It is what it is. But the rewards can be so wonderful and so impactful and teachers are always so passionate about what they do. I watch my husband, who's a teacher, stay up late at night creating lesson plans, and it's way beyond any other job requirement that I've seen, but he does it because of the rewards that he gets.
And I think when you take the incentive to get your feet wet in the technology, I think people come to you and then want to talk about technology. So that's pretty cool.
Yep. So we have 1 minute left. And with that, I'm going to say thank you all for your patience at the very beginning of this and us trying to get live and streaming. We're all learning as we're doing this with you. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for your awesome questions and participating in the Twitter chat with those questions. I apologize that we didn't quite get the comments set up right on Google. We'll fix that. Thank you to my guest speakers and my guest question askers, Victoria and Jessie. We'll bring Jessie back into the frame too. And we hope you have a wonderful day. If anybody wants to join for round 2, Round 2 will be at night tonight, California time at least, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time tonight. It's 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time tonight for the second round of this. And I hope if you want to join, you can. Thank you all so much and have a fabulous day, Tuesday or Wednesday,
Melissa.
wherever you are.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Bye.
Bye.